Okay. So firstly, I would like to start off with the acknowledgement of country. I begin today by acknowledging the traditional custodians of the land on which we gather or meet today, and pay my respects to their elders, past and present, and I extend that respect to Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples here today. So today's workshop format, basically we'll do the general introduction of the mooting and finding team members and the dates, and then I will hand it over to our discussion, the discussion for our panelists, and they will go through the tips and recommendations for preparing written submissions, and appropriate courtroom etiquette and conduct, and general overview of mooting evaluation. So my name is May Lawler, and I am the current or the returning Dictum president for 2023. I am in my fourth and final year of my Bachelor of Laws degree, and my aim is to become a judge or magistrate within Victoria. So basically, moots and competitions. The moot courts are basically like pretend courts. But the process is as though you are in a real courtroom, but it's a practice run for students, for law students. It's a great opportunity, as Marco mentioned earlier, to gain some practical experience and also get that confidence. Because once you're out in the real world, by going through these moot simulations, you would have had some experience within that field or area. So the next one is finding team members. So finding team members, basically you can partner up with a peer or a classmate who may also be interested in participating. But I see that a lot of our participants who have already registered have asked for us to partner you up, which is fine. We can definitely do that, and we will organize that for you. So once registrations do close, you will get another notification introducing you to who your partner will be for the competition. So important dates. So the important dates, registrations are still open, but they do close on the 6th of March, next week on Monday at 11:59 p.m. And then once they close, like I said, you'll receive an email introducing you to your partner or your teammate. And then you'll need to submit the claimant memorandum, which will be due on Wednesday, the 8th of March by 7 p.m. And then by Friday, the respondent memorandum will be due by 7 p.m. on the 10th of March. So the oral rounds will start, or the general rounds will start on the 20th of March. So it will go for 2 to 3 days. So it could be the Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. And then the semi-final will be on the Thursday. And then grand final will be on the Friday. With the grand finals, we have some amazing judges already lined up for the general and semi-final rounds. But for the grand finals, we are actually hoping to have official judges or King's Councils as our judges for the grand final, which will be a great networking opportunity for our participants, and also for those who are organising this competition. So stay tuned, keep an eye out on your emails, because everything will be sent to you via email. Sorry. Introductions. Basically, I will be passing it on to our guest speakers for tonight. And they will be discussing or preparing the written, like as I said, the written submissions and delivering oral submissions, appropriate courtroom etiquette and conduct, general overview of evaluation of competitors, and any of the other points as per the slides that we go through tonight. So I would like to introduce our guest speakers, which is firstly Isan Pillai, who is the principal lawyer for J&Co and is a highly experienced, well-respected and talented lawyer with decades of experience helping both clients and other lawyers. We also have the amazing Marko Novikov, the Development and Community Engagement Manager with College of Law Victoria, where he works with law students, graduates, lawyers, and industry groups. We also have Nikki, who will be joining us later on. She's the Director of Business Partnering and Workplace Relations at Victoria Police. So I will now hand it over firstly to Isan to further introduce himself.
Thank you, May. What an introduction. I'm quite taken aback by that. Hello to everyone. Welcome to our seminar, I guess, to really provide you with a bit of insight and whatever we can in relation to the mooting practice, or the practice of mooting that you guys will be encountering. Well, apart from the lovely introduction May has gladly imparted to you guys about myself, I do remember myself doing or engaging and being involved in the junior moots in my junior years in law school as well. It was very informative, and it was also exciting. I found that got to learn a lot of practical knowledge, or to put into play and into practice the theory of what one learns through law school. And I did find it quite collegial and rewarding, in the sense of I'm still good friends with the people that I did the very first junior moot with. But yeah, without further ado, I'm here to answer any questions that people may have on, like May said, court etiquette and advocacy and points of relevance and those sort of things. But essentially, it's very important to also just have fun and learn through the whole experience as well. But thank you for that, mate.
Thank you, Isan. And I will now pass that on over to Marko.
And thanks very much, May, for that excellent introduction for me. I also echo exactly what Isan said. I'm really honored by that. So to introduce myself to all of our student guests today, I myself am a lawyer, and I have been very fortunate that I spent most of my time practicing law as a litigation lawyer. And that was in civil litigation. So unlike Isan, I've practiced on the other side, in which I didn't deal with any criminal matters, but I dealt a lot with commercial litigation matters. And just before coming to the College of Law, I was dealing with a lot of administrative law litigation matters. And I did mention earlier, for those who were here, that I regret not participating in student competitions in the past when I was studying at uni, because I had a bit of a learning curve when it came to then being a practicing lawyer. I was fortunate my first role was a judge's associate, so I got to watch barristers and solicitors in action. But it's a whole different story watching people in front of you, as part of the litigation process and the mooting, as compared to you doing it yourself. So it's one of those things, like you could watch someone ride a bike, but you're not going to learn how to ride the bike yourself until you put your feet on the pedals and start going. And for me, the experience I had was really enjoyable. But the reason I'm in my current role right now is because in my final years of practice, I got a chance to do a lot of relationship management with other lawyers who are undertaking programs for advancing the careers of lawyers. So just like you're studying at uni now, once you become a lawyer, you have the opportunity to do further study as a practicing lawyer. And I used to manage these education programs we had for them. And so I later got picked up by the college, where I expanded that portfolio to now work with law students as well. And to be honest, I love working with law students. You're a lot more easygoing. You don't have the same stresses as practicing lawyers. You're keen to learn more. You ask a lot of questions. And generally, I find it just a really enjoyable experience for me. And because of my experience and background, I tend to judge a lot of student competitions when I'm available to do that. And it's a great way for me to connect with students, but also just to share a bit of feedback that I have from my own professional experience. And just like Hassan said, I'm very excited and happy to be here and just to help out as much as I can. Thank you.
Thank you, Marco. And we're definitely excited to have you both with us today as well. So we'll move on now. And once Nikki joins us, we'll be able to get her to quickly introduce herself. But next on the discussion is the general preparation. So I'll pass that over to Marco and Hassan to run through it with us all.
May I, having had the benefit of participating in student competitions, everything on this slide really is important when it comes to general preparation. And Hassan, feel free to jump in and add as much as you can as well, given that you're obviously still practicing now and mooting.
Yeah.
It's important when you're actually here, it says, you try to schedule moots around a time that works best for everyone. So I assume, May, that here you're just talking about how the Dictum societies worked around the schedules of judges to pick important dates to hold the moots. But when it comes to yourself preparing for the moots, you always have to come together as a team and chat a lot. So you want to speak to each other, whether it's by phone, whether it's virtual meetings, whether you're going to meet on campus, but have that time to discuss and plan. Planning is so important. It's really the key, because once you start talking about how to prepare, you're going to bounce ideas off each other. And then you might do a little bit of research, somebody else might do a little bit of research, and then you come back. Really, you've heard that statement, and I don't want to keep repeating something that's obvious to you, that preparation is the key. But honestly, as a practicing lawyer, going to a moot, you prepare so much. And Hassan, you can elaborate a little bit more on this, but for example, when I was preparing for my litigation matters, if I had a barrister that I would be briefing for long trials, then it was a little bit easy. I focused heavily on the written submissions.
Yeah.
But where I appeared as a solicitor advocate, where I didn't brief a barrister, I would have to really know my notes as well. And I would actually stand in front of a mirror and stare at myself and try to pose arguments and then pretend that somebody else has given the opposing argument to what I'm trying to say, and then deliver my response. Because the key, as Hassan will also talk about, when you're delivering your arguments in front of a judge, you want to maintain eye contact and you want to have a confident tone and you want to know what you're doing. The last thing a judge wants to hear is and you flicking through paper, because it's showing a lack of confidence, but also that you don't know your material. So this is why I'm saying preparation is the key, and do that very well with your teammates. Sorry, Hassan, do you want to jump in and add anything?
You covered that very, very succinctly. The key aspects I find definitely as an advocate, being in criminal law practice, it was always the Bible to do was the Criminal Procedure Act, the Evidence Act, and any other sort of legislation that would be based on the basis of what the problem is at hand. So say, for example, if you got a Section 23 summary assault, then your Summary Offences Act would be very handy, and the specific definition of what the summary offence assault is. So the key to the preparation is, one, identifying the issues. That's the biggest key, because if you don't identify the issue, everything that you prepare will be moot, mind the pun. Everything else will be irrelevant, really, if you don't identify the issue succinctly. And then secondly, like Marco said, is dividing it into the three members of part of the mooting team. Usually you have senior counsel, junior counsel, and instructing solicitor from memory in my days, which was quite some time ago now. So it's really about segregating who takes what part of the issue. So, for example, if you've got a negligence, say, sort of case, someone will take duty of care, someone will take causation, someone will take, that it'll separate it in that sort of aspect. And then obviously, one of the most important aspects is to, which some may oversee, is not just to prepare your side, but also to prepare the other side to know what some of the counterclaims or the counter arguments will be in relation to addressing the point of issue. So say if the issue is, for example, in negligence, I'll use that. Say for the issue is causation or remoteness. So, it's to it's not close enough in the proximity for the damage to have resulted. You would be looking up, say, if you're for that, you'd be looking up for it, but you'd also be looking up against it. And as to being able to provide some assertions as to, whoever's presiding, whichever judge, in that you'd be saying, Your Honour, this is our submission, and we wholeheartedly contend at this X, Y, Z. And we may also bring to Your Honour's attention that, the opposing parties may draw Your Honour's mind to ABC and so forth. But we contend that it falls short because of X, Y, Z. I think identifying both sides really assists whoever's presiding in being able to be directed and led in making a sound decision. Not sure if you wanted to add to that as well, Marco.
Oh, yeah. And we're having a lot of fun, and forgive us, we may jump around a little bit based on the issues, but because the submissions are so important, this is why we're focusing a lot on it. There's a couple of things that Ihsan mentioned that I'll also add to because it's so relevant. When it comes to, preparing your submissions, you're going to have what you need as part of your memoranda. And thank you very much, May, for putting up the slide. But there's 4 basic elements you need to cover, irrespective of the headings here, although that's exactly what you want to do as part of your written submissions. But the 4 basic principles or topics you need to cover is first that proposition you need to prove. So if it is a negligence case and you're acting on behalf of the plaintiff, you need to be able to prove all the elements of negligence, that there was a duty owed, that there was a breach of that duty, there was causation, and you address the remoteness issue, exactly as Ihsan said. And then you address the conclusion, which in that case would be, damages, like there was physical harm, and then the consequences of that. So that's the first point you need to do. And then the second point is you need to make some statements of law in your submissions, but they have to cite important authority. Yes. And when you're citing authority, that, as Ihsan mentioned, if it's a criminal case and it's a summary offense, you got to go into the act and cite it. You know what I mean? And it'll come to a point, for example, where you have to address sentencing. But let's say it's a negligence. You're going to cite relevant authorities to break down the elements of the offense, the ones that I just mentioned. And, you're going to have some easy references, like by now I'm hoping you've heard of Donahue and Stevenson. That's the snail in the bottle, right? That's a very, very leading case. It's old, but I'm just using it as an example. That's a case that you can cite for a general proposition. But let's say the moot problem you're going to have is someone falling downstairs at work. And maybe there was a cleaner at work and didn't clean the floor properly. You've got a couple of issues there. You as the plaintiff may want to sue the employer plus the cleaning company. So you're going to have a couple of claims there. But the issue is you're going to want to cite cases where it's happened, whether in this state, Victoria, another state, where judges have looked at cases where someone's slipped on stairs where there's some water and fell down and injured themselves. Because sometimes when you're looking at that, you might have an issue of how often did the cleaners clean the stairs? How much water did they use? Was it a result of the cleaners? Could have been someone that was walking down the stairs. Is there camera evidence of someone drinking their water, another employee, and spilling it? You still have a duty of care as the employer. But the point being is that there's going to be cases that look at that. So you want to find cases that deal with your same issue. So there's got to be similar fact scenario there. And you do that for a couple of reasons. One of them is what Ihsan mentioned. First, you need to support your propositions, your case, but you also need to look at other cases that don't support your arguments. And so part of the reason is that you need to acknowledge that in your submissions. So if you don't and the other side addresses it, it looks like you don't know what you're talking about, or you're trying to mislead the court. And the other reason is sometimes those cases that go against your arguments, there's something in there that distinguishes that factual scenario from your factual scenario. And you're able to rely on those differences in that other case. So it may not support your case, but you can say, Your Honor, the differences between that case and this case are X, Y, and Z. And for that reason, we contend that there was causation and that it wasn't remote, for example. So you have to really think about how you can use your authorities. Yeah. And then, as I mentioned, apply those facts to the law. And finally, whenever you're drawing your conclusion, tie it all back together. But your submissions are really fundamental to make sure that they're as good as you can get them in the written submissions. And then Ihsan and I will talk next about oral submissions, but make sure your written submissions are very methodical, because that's what the judge is going to see. That's what the other side is going to see. And so they're able to like really pick at it. And sometimes a judge will look at those written submissions and may have other questions. And this is where, you'll need to be able to turn to them during the oral submissions.
Yeah. Well said, Marco. And just if I could add, it's that the reason you are required to be prepared and well versed with your written submissions is because more often than not, you'll find that your oratory skills in advocacy in court really is on the basis more as to how conversationalist it can be, as opposed to being arbitrary or as opposed to being authoritative. If you're having a conversation with members of the judiciary and your learned friends, it makes everything seem more fluid and transient, and it makes it just seem in accordance. So in accordance with the interests of justice. So if, say, for example, you'll have a statement of agreed facts, or you'll have like outlines and indexes and all the written submissions which will be filed beforehand, where all parties will have a copy of, including the member presiding or the judge, and you won't be picking on semantics of that as opposed to getting into your legal arguments and drawing in whatever the facts are that is in your fact scenario, if you're the plaintiff or for the defendant, whichever side you're taking, and then drawing the facts to the relevant points of the law, and then really advocating your written submissions to the judge presiding in an attempt to make them see reason from your contention. But don't, be prepared for the judge to have questions and interject and so forth, because it is, like I said, it's much more like a dialogue than a monologue. And speaking about monologue, I'm doing a monologue right here. I might as well say hi to Nikki as well. I think she's just entered.
Sorry to be late, everyone.
Hi,
Nikki.
Oh, the joys of my real job. So apologies.
Well,
That's all right.
Nikki.
We were having fun so far, Nikki, just talking about written submission.
But I'll also get
Sorry,
Nikki.
May, what was that?
No, I'll also get you to quickly introduce yourself, and then we can continue on with the conversation. So everyone, welcome Nikki.
Hi.
Hello, everyone. So apologies for being late. I'm Nikki. I am the Director of Business Partnering and Workplace Relations at Victoria Police. So I've got about 50 lawyers, consultants, advisors that work for me with, I guess, really HR and employment law areas. So as you can probably imagine, pretty interesting and diverse work that we do. I think I'm probably here today. I am a VU alumni. I lectured in the mooting subject while we had it. I participated in the Jessup and Viz Moots, and then also coached some teams for Jessup and the Kirby Moot. So
Awesome.
yeah, and have judged a couple of times before, I think.
Awesome.
And it's been a pleasure having you as well, and for this one too. So thank you. Yay. So Marco, we were discussing the written submissions. Are you happy to move on to the oral submissions?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, again, this is something important that I'll say before we move on. And obviously, Nikki, feel free to jump in whenever. Ihsan and I have just been sort of fluid. But something that very important that Ihsan mentioned is you don't want to have a monologue. It's more of a conversation that you're having with the judge, but also with your learned colleagues on the other side. The key in this respect is, if you want to avoid that monologue, don't regurgitate your written submissions. Your written submissions are there for everyone on the court record to know, to read. This is how everyone prepares. If you're just regurgitating, then you're not doing justice to your client, because you're wasting time reading something that's already obvious because it's there. And secondly, you're not enhancing or adding anything to your submissions. The written submissions are there to provide as much facts and case law and citing legislation as needs to be. But what you're trying to do is focus on the relevant points and get across them. And in some cases, you may say, Your Honor, this is a wonderful thing called signposting. Your Honor, I'm going to address issues X and Y, and my learned junior is going to, or senior, going to address Z. And then when you're going through the submissions, you're going to talk to them. You're not going to sit there and read them, because part of the allure of mooting and showing your confidence in your capability is that you know what you're talking about already, rather than having to refer to your notes. And also, if you are wasting everyone's time and causing the trial to be lengthier than necessary because you're reading your notes, again, that's not in favor of the administration of justice, and you could get in trouble for that. So remember, your written notes are for the court record for everyone to see, but your oral submissions are there for you to focus on the most important areas to shine. And also, if you get questions from the judge might pick at certain things in your written submissions that ask for clarifications. This is your opportunity during oral submissions to further enhance that argument or to answer those questions. I think I can leave it at that. Is there any more you might want to add, San or Nikki?
I think, Nikki, the floor is yours, pretty much. I think Margaret's stated what I was really, harping on before as well, because you got to be prepared for, the interruptions or the interference by members on the bench. And I suppose interference is my use of it is a lack of a better word, but perhaps the interjection for members of the bench to seek clarity in the sense of what it is that you're advocating, and also just be careful in relation to making assertions. I mean, this comes down to closing submissions, but without a statement of agreement facts or agreed facts and so forth, if there is a fact that's in dispute, and if that isn't recognized, you can get called up on that. But I don't think that sort of issue will come up in this sort of moot. I think the whole set of facts will be applicable to both anyway. So,
and I imagine, Nikki, just on what Isan was talking about, you would be coaching students about how not to get nervous or frustrated or angry. And, with all that coaching you've done, because I mentioned to everyone here, I sadly didn't participate in competitions. I regret it so much. And I love judging competitions because I'm like, this is fun, but I try to give as much feedback. But sometimes I haven't had, during the times I interject, as Asana said, to find that some students get angry, but I see them get flustered. And I'm just wondering, how do you coach students overall on preparation of submissions, but also when it comes to getting questions, not necessarily to get angry or flustered, but to take it as this is a way to help clarify an issue in contention?
Yeah, it's really interesting. I've just come from a meeting that was actually just like this. So, a big part of my role is writing briefs for various senior people. And then often meeting to go through, this is what my brief is, and this is why, so your oral submissions really are that opportunity to persuade someone. Here's why I'm right. You've got it in writing, but let me explain it to you further. And I think one of the things to remember is often, you will know more about the facts. You've been, living and breathing the facts and the cases more than your judges often will be. So when they're asking you questions, or occasionally even when they've got something wrong, I think it's always scary when you get very senior people going, but Nikki, what about this? And you're like, oh, that's wrong. I think the judge is asking a question is not them generally trying to trip you up or find you out. It's them genuinely inquiring. And I think the best teams are the ones that are able to go, you know what, this is really an opportunity for me to show how much I know and to, work with you on this. So I'm not going to get flustered. I'm not going to get taken off, where I'm going, and I'm going to answer the question, then go back to what I was doing previously. So I think preparing for that, don't be afraid to take a deep breath and think for a second before you respond. Don't be afraid to ask them to re-ask the question if you're not sure what they're actually asking you. But start to get comfortable with it, start to enjoy it. I have had people get hostile with me when I've asked questions in the Moot, and you're like, whoa, your job as an advocate is just persuade me, getting cross at me, treating me like I'm stupid. Even if I am, I'm sure that there are times that I've asked some silly questions. I am not necessarily up on the brief. But showing me that you think I'm stupid, or I've interrupted you, really isn't going to help persuade you and to help you to get your case across. So, think of it, always keep your end goal is, how do I persuade, the people that I'm appearing before, how do I use that question? Obviously this is something that's of interest to them. So how do I give them, the answers and give them the reassurance that my view is right?
Yeah, well said.
Very well said.
Yeah.
Perhaps, May, there's something in the slides we may not have covered yet you want us to go through?
I think the whole format's pretty self-explanatory with the table of contents and all that. Right? You often find
it's very good to have that as a template for the students.
Yeah.
They often have practice direction notes in county court and all that, which outlines the purposes of all those, and that's easily accessible online and so forth if anyone wants to have a look. It really just provides a structure for the court and the presiding judge.
Now, I might just ask this, and I don't know how much you can reveal, May. I might have looked at this where you had an earlier slide that it was applicant respondent or something like that in terms of submission. So I don't know if this is going to be a civil or criminal moot. But if it is a criminal moot, and Ehsan definitely back me up on this, I've been a judge where issues were addressed as to the elements of the offense. And whether the person was guilty or not of that offense, but then no reference to the Sentencing Act when it came to submissions about sentences. So I heard stuff like, this is a grave injustice. And I was thinking, I'm not interested in your personal beliefs. I want the law, right? So what does the law say? What does the Sentencing Act say for if you're found guilty of this particular offense? Not that it's a grave injustice, that it's 10 years, because that's what the prosecution wants. So if it is going to be a criminal moot, definitely make sure you are referring to the Sentencing Act as part of your And if it is going to be potentially a negligence moot, make sure you know your quantum and that you're calculating that because that's important for decision making in terms of calculating loss, if it's economic loss, and general suffering, depending on the type of injury.
Yep. So I can definitely confirm it is the civil case that the participants will be working on. But the one that we haven't covered is the general rules of a moot.
Sure.
I know Ehsan basically touched on it before, where when you do address the judges, that you do address them as Your Honour. Business attire, so basically formal wear, must wear a blazer, both males and females. And basically each team is given 11 minutes divided between yourself and your partner to make your arguments for both, because you'll actually get to participate as the claimant's lawyer, and then you'll also go to another round where you'll be participating as the respondent's lawyer. What else is there? And yes, and when you are in session, do not talk to each other. That is one rule that I've learned from the judges last year, is do not talk to each other. Write your notes on a post-it and then just pass it to each other. But don't turn around and say, hey, you forgot this part. No,
it's funny, May, you mentioned that, and because Ehsan, and I think Nikki, we all know this as solicitors, that when you're briefing barristers, a lot of notes are being exchanged.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. And also, just, yeah, to always seek leave when you appear and seek permission when leaving the bar table.
Yeah, always a lot of "may it please the court," lots of that. And obviously, you know, when you're introducing yourself, as Hassan said, you may please the court, Your Honor, my name is such and such, I'm appearing on behalf. So those are very obvious things, but definitely in the closing section, at the close of your arguments, you know, may it please the court, or if it pleases the court. But it's a way of signaling that you've finished with your, like you've concluded all your arguments.
Yeah.
And just one final thing that I did want to point out is when you're scheduled for your session, to make sure that you do arrive 15 minutes prior to your time, because you are marked, well, you do lose a point if you do arrive late. And late is considered that if you're scheduled for 6 o'clock and you arrive at 6 o'clock, that's late. So you need to make sure that you do arrive at least 15 minutes beforehand. But do you
Very tough.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, we're all going to be lawyers, so we got to get into that habit.
Absolutely.
True.
Now, I might ask something, May, just because I'm also conscious that Nikki would be offering great advice on this as well. But are we able to just give a bit of a general overview of how we would be judging, like the types of criteria we'd be looking at when we're judging students without going into specific details?
Yes, please. I was actually going to offer that, but yes, go for it.
Perfect. And Nikki and Hassan, feel free to jump in. I'm just going to sort of briefly go through some stuff, but for me, obviously, Moot is all about your presentation and your professionalism. If this is your first time doing a junior Moot and you're a little bit nervous, that comes off, that's okay. That's not something that necessarily a judge will downgrade you on. It's more so about the presentation of your arguments and your legal coherency. So that's very important. The fact that you're a little bit nervous, that's okay. So don't worry too much, but you still have to be professional. And part of that is, again, the way you present yourself at court, including the way you address the judges, the way you address your junior barrister co-counsel, and of course, your learned colleagues. And also, for me, it's quite important when I look at the fact that students know their material so well that they don't have to read their notes all the time. Again, I don't like to see stuff regurgitated because it shows to me that you don't know your stuff. And also, you know, how you respond to the judges. So Nikki, let me just echo what you said. Again, I haven't had that experience, but if I did have it, I'd be quite upset because in a real moot, this is what you can anticipate from the judges. And sometimes the judges will review all the material, but you know they've got a lot of cases going on, and maybe more than one, and their mind is not specifically tuned to every single detail of every case. So if they mention something that may be incorrect, your job is to incorrect them, but not be angry at them or tell them off or be sarcastic with them. But is there anything else you'd like to add on top of that, Nikki?
I think you've covered it well, Marco. I think, yeah, absolutely. We're expecting everyone to be a bit nervous. You know, I think practicing a few times before certainly helps, you know, making sure, like Marco said, that you're across your material, because I think that gives you a degree of comfort in and of itself. You know, where you go, okay, I know what I'm talking about. You know, that's one less thing I have to worry about. Now I've just got to remember what I'm calling my judges. You know, the things that I've been called, that I've seen people be called, you know, your worship, your majesty, your excellency. I have told my team at work that I'd like to be referred to as your excellency from here on forward. So far they haven't run with that, which is disappointing. But making sure that you know, again, the correct terminology. And I know, you know, in my first appearance, that was one of the most petrifying things was, you know, what do I call that person in front of me? And actually, what side of the, you know, the table am I sitting on? You know, am I on the left or the right? And I don't know. And what if I get this wrong and everyone's going to hate me? So make sure that you understand all of that beforehand, you know, get comfortable. If you're not sure, ask. There are lots of great resources around you. I think the law school's always happy to help out with that. And I know Dictum, are really supportive of those kind of things. So plan, prepare, get it across your material as much as you can beforehand. And I think, to echo what Marco said, maintaining that professionalism. I have had, I've asked questions and gone, yeah, so yeah, you're right. Yeah, maintain that level of professionalism. Don't expect that you're not going to okay? Have been known to count how many my teams have used. I will not be doing that, I promise. But be conscious of the language that you're using, maintain that professionalism, maintain that formality, and recognize that this is a great learning opportunity. You may not get it perfect, but if you've tried your hardest, you're well prepared, well organized, you're really setting yourself up to succeed, not only in the competition, but for your future too.
Yep. Spot on, Nikki.
Well said.
Thank you so much. So basically, we have now come to Q&As. So does anyone have a question for our guest speakers regarding the Junior Moot?
And by the way, everyone, feel free to ask questions. I know you've heard this before from lecturers and everyone, oh, nothing's a dumb question. But the reality is you're going into a competition now. It's better to ask so you get that clarification than not. And you're getting it from people that are practicing and people that have judged competition. So you won't get a better opportunity than now to, like, if you have a burning question. And trust me, we would have seen it all. So we want to hear it all as well.
Perfect. Oh, Elizabeth, go ahead.
It's my understanding this Junior Moot, all the participants would not have been in a previous Moot. Is that correct? That everybody's new?
So usually in the past, they did say that it's preferred that you're a first or second year. But from past experience, last year, we've offered it to anyone. So you can be in any year of your degree to participate. So if you participated in a Junior Moot last year, it's fine. You can participate in the Junior Moot this year. It's just we want to provide students with the opportunity to gain that experience and that confidence for when they are out in the real world.
And if I could add to that, May, if this might be something relevant to you, Elizabeth, is that, if you have undertaken the competition before and you reappear to do it again, it is good for those people to come back because it's building upon their earlier experiences, but it's also good for the other side that hasn't, because you watch how they perform, you see their professionalism, you see the way they interact with the judges, the way they present their arguments, and that actually gives you clues as to how you can also potentially enhance your own performance. So it's not necessarily a bad thing that you're going up against someone that might have done it before. Use it as a learning opportunity to go, that's what they're doing. Maybe I'll take that on board and this is how I'll do it as well. So sometimes you learn little tricks from them. That's how I would see it as, if you wanted to put it to your benefit.
Yeah, no. I just seen your comments in the chat, Elizabeth. That's perfect. Like, because you've got the opportunity to participate, go for it. I mean, if I wasn't part of Dictum, I would definitely participate. But just sitting there watching the competitors last year, it ignited like a burning desire within me that I wanted to be in the competitions, but unfortunately, I don't have an option. So definitely join, definitely, highly recommended. Anyone else have any questions? Oh, what is the best advice?
I'm seeing a lot in the chat, May.
Yeah.
So I'll pass this. There is a question from Rose. What is the best advice you can recommend for students struggling with anxiety?
Yeah, look, Rose, I think my advice in the past, which Chatham House rules apply, which means what's said here stays here, was have a shot of vodka. That's frowned upon apparently sometimes, especially at Big Pole where we're 00 constantly. But I think there are lots of ways to work through that. For me, it was certainly doing it more. I get a bit nervous, a bit anxious when I do anything that I haven't done before, that I'm worried that I'm not good at. So just being prepared to put yourself out of your comfort zone actually often works really well. Plan for it, expect it. We've all been there. And the one thing I loved about mooting is it's not real life, so if you make a mistake, that's okay. I still remember, my big mistakes early on in my career, and I don't know about the others here, but it used to be you'd get sat down for directions hearings and things like that, which are very simple, very straightforward, but there's usually about 30 other lawyers in the room. So when you say something stupid, there's about 30 other people there and you just want to curl up and die. But what I loved about that too was you don't die. The world doesn't end. And you get through it. So, I'm sure there are lots of things like, breathing exercises, mindfulness. For me, it was just going, you know what, this is going to be a little bit uncomfortable. I'm going to say something silly at some stage. For me, when I get nervous, not just my face goes red, my entire body goes red, which is great fun. And you just go, that's okay. So yeah, embrace it. So yeah, I'll hand over to Asan and Marco to give their feedback. But yeah.
No, that's perfectly said, Nikki. For me, it was just coming to understand that we're all humans. The person sitting on the bench was at one point exactly where you are right now. And if you remember that, all else will be able to be dealt with, irrespective of anything that may transpire. Be prepared and realize that you're just talking to another human being, and learn one, so be it. And yeah, just enjoy the ride, because once you get into that workforce, I remember going to like Nikki said, directions or committals and stuff like that, mentions, and and it was just, it could at times be overwhelming when you're 26, 27 and doing those sort of things. But again, what really held me in good stead was just saying hi to the person next to me and being like, "What's your name? I'm so and so. Where are you from?" And and it's a collegial profession, so don't forget that we're all in it for the interest of justice and nothing else.
And it's the same thing when you're a student. If I can add to what Hassan was saying, and Nikki, I mean, you're very lucky. This is a simulated court hearing, so it's not the real thing, obviously. And you're getting people who are volunteering to be judges. So remember that people who generally volunteer are the ones that like to give feedback to students. They like to mentor students. So it's okay to have that anxiety, because we'll expect it as judges, but they're going to be really good-hearted and good-natured. So they're there to help you out. So it's okay to be anxious. That's the first thing to note, just like Nikki and Asan are saying. And the second thing, again, is once you do this once, when you get anxious about something and then you start doing it and then you calm down. So that's how it usually works. So I know it would happen to me, even as I was, progressing to more senior lawyer. Whenever I started, I might read my submissions a lot faster at the beginning, and then I'd really slow down the tempo. So no matter how many times I did it before, I always had this little thing in my stomach, like a little bit of anxiety. But the anxiety is good because it shows you care and it shows you want to do a good job. So anxiety is not necessarily a bad thing. Just work with it, allow it to happen, and just think, wow, this isn't a real court hearing, but I'm going to get feedback as if it is. Man, I'm going to do a great job next time, and I'll keep building up on this. And you'll just watch your anxiety lessen and lessen, and make friends with everyone there. Make friends with your team members, with the opposing team members. You're all in this together. And honestly, you're all going to laugh about it and joke about it afterwards. Just like Asan and Nikki were saying, you sometimes make a mistake and you're like, oh, everyone's watching and listening. But guess what? They're not. Because what's going on in their head is their concerns about them screwing up. So they don't care about what you screw up. They're more concerned about what they'll screw up. So, you know, if it's anxiety about other people, trust me, they're thinking about other things and you don't have to worry.
Yeah, precisely.
Perfect. Yes. Rose, hopefully that answers your question. And also, Nikki, I can see that you responded to Tan's. Did you want to maybe elaborate on that just for everyone else?
Yeah, yeah. So the question was really around, you know, how can we anticipate what will be asked or argued by the opposite team? So when you're doing your written submissions, you'll usually do your written submissions for both sides, you know, which is actually really fantastic. Because it does start you thinking about the problem from both sides, you know. So, you know, you look at what are the strengths in my argument from, you know, the claimant side, what are my strengths in my arguments from the respondent side. And so those are the things, you know, so when you're acting on behalf of the claimant, you know, you can start to anticipate, well, I know, you know, from what I've written, here are the likely claims that the respondent will be making. So what you want to do is try and weave into your arguments, you know, both your claims or your arguments as the claimant or the applicant, but then also, you know, weaving in, here's what here's what the respondent's likely to say, or here's what the respondent said in their written submissions. This is why they're wrong, you know, or this is why they're not entirely correct, or yeah, they're right, but here's why we still win.
Perfect. Thank you so much. I also just wanted to echo off what Nikki, Ehsan, and Marco just touched base on regarding as an organizer. Basically, when you get there, we will make you feel as comfortable as possible. We'll definitely have some laughs and introduce ourselves to you. And then we'll be your cheerleaders in the background for each team. And then afterwards, we'll still be there as support as well, and we'll have more laughs. So then you guys can vent and everything once it's done, but we'll be there from the beginning to the end as your support team. So rooting for you all, everyone who will be participating. But I think that actually brings us to the end of today's session. So we thank you all for joining us online. And please join me in thanking our amazing guest speakers for tonight and for giving up their valuable time to share with us their expertise and further our understanding and education around the processes of mooting. Now, before we do say farewell, I'd like to take a group photo of everyone who's here today. So if you'd like to participate, if you can turn on your cameras and I'll count us down. Hopefully my camera works this time.
Yeah. May, in the olden days, we used to spit on our fingers to do one of these.
You do the thumb and the pinky.
Yeah, yeah, that's it.
Oh no, my camera.
But this is what I mean. We're here to have a laugh, all of us, whether we're judges or students. And your students competing against each other and with each other, but you're still going to be friends afterwards. So like none of that changes. You're still going to be, whether you win or you don't end up being the winner, you're still going to see each other the next day. So like, it's treated for what it really is. It's a fun exercise to prepare you for the future.
Yeah, definitely. And Matthew can also vouch for that as well, because he's been in a few of the moots, and afterwards we're lifelong friends now. So we work together in Dictum, but we're also good friends outside of Dictum. So, okay, I'll count us down. So, 3, 2, 1. Yay! Thank you so much, everyone. Please stay safe and healthy, and goodbye for now.
See you, mate.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
See you, Nikki. Great seeing you again. See you, Son. We'll chat.
Bye, Son.
Nice meeting you, Nikki.
All the best, everyone. Take care.
See you.